Well, at their spring conferences, teachers have reported being bitten by pupils, have alleged that some schools have had to recruit bouncers, and have claimed that pupils see exclusion from class as a badge of honour. Well, in his report, Learning Behaviour, Sir Alan Steer said teachers have all the tools they need to instil discipline, but perhaps they could try using TV formats to liven up their lessons to stop bored pupils misbehaving. Well, most agree with Secretary of State Ed Balls that many schools could do better when it comes to keeping control. Our next big question, should we bring back the cane? David Quarry, former teaching assistant, campaigner on this, you very much think so. Why? I mean, discipline is bad, but is violence the answer?
No, violence is not the answer, but we are not, none of us who think like I do are promoting violence. There's a huge difference between smacking a child and thrashing him with a belt or giving him 20 lashes with something. They are totally different things. We must get back to a system that works. We've had 20 years or more of a system that is failing. The teachers at their conferences this Easter have made it crystal clear what they want. They're not happy with the current situation.
Some of the children with the biggest disciplinary problems in schools are causing most of the problems for other children and for teachers are those maybe who have abuse and violence at home.
Possibly, but you can't categorically say that. You can't just answer it like that. There is something wrong. There is no sanction for a lot of the good teachers. We're losing so many good teachers. We can't afford to lose these professional people. They must be listened to and their requests carried out. It's no good politicians and various other do-gooders and people saying again and again that the system is working.
Something needs to be done.
It clearly isn't. And we've tried so many other things. They've all failed. The cane worked. And most of us, well, not most, many in this room have probably been caned. We didn't turn into violent people. We're none the worse for it. All right, it didn't deter us in some ways. Some of us were caned more than once. But by Jove, when you were caned, it did hurt. You thought twice.
So it is violent?
No, it isn't violent. It isn't violent.
Christina Rees?
I have huge sympathy for what you're saying, and particularly for all the teachers who have to put up with out-of-control students and what can they do. But I think it would be a sad day if we as a society return to a system where we rely on physical punishment to instill discipline and moral behaviour in our young people and in our children. And I think as a human race, we can do better than that. We can do better. And I think it would be ultimately a brutalisation of our society. And I do think there are ways of instilling, because the end result is we want to teach children and young people discipline, how to discipline themselves and set
Christina,
boundaries.
One of the big fears when this was debated in Parliament and finally thrown out, one of the big fears it was 1987, as late as that. One of the big fears was that it would lead to a lack of discipline in schools.
And it has. And I don't have a full-blown answer. All I think is that it would be very sad to return to corporal punishment, and I'm sure that we can find different ways of instilling discipline.
David,
and I actually think it would be generational. I do not think this is a quick fix. I think we have to think long-term and come by and say, why are the children not receiving?
We've been trying for over 20 years on various long-term alternatives and they haven't worked.
John Thompson, Headmaster.
Could I come in? I see there's no point at all in corporal punishment in schools. It doesn't affect anything.
Is it violence?
It does. It's a deterrent. It's an effective deterrent.
Violence begets violence.
It's a sanction for the teachers to use.
The students in our school who would end up having the cane would not be affected by it in any way. They would be, in the end, walk back into class with a badge of honour. I've been in the head's office, I've had the cane, look at me. And it would just escalate and escalate. I'm passionately against the reintroduction of
I couldn't disagree with you more.
Nick Seaton.
Well, it shouldn't be regarded as violence. It's a punishment, actually. And the problem nowadays, I think, is that the responsible adults have handed over their authority to children. And the children think they can... Absolutely. And the children think they can get away with murder. And the point about corporal punishment, it's a deterrent. And which is better, to give a youngster a couple of strokes of the cane or a slap across the hand with a ruler?
What for?
Well, for a serious offence or seriously threatening.
I was beaten at school for insolence, believe it or not.
Well, I think that's probably a bit... I mean, insolence...
It didn't work. Thank you, David Davis. I'll see you in my study after the programme.
But the point is, you know, which is worse, to give them some form of punishment so they understand they've done wrong, or to let them grow up and stick a knife in someone, or mug an old lady, which is what often happens. If you get let these children run.
What I'm saying, I'm not saying there shouldn't be any punishments or consequences. There absolutely should be. But I don't think the cane is the answer. I'm not saying that we shouldn't punish students and they should know where the line is drawn, and they should know there are consequences to actions. But the cane isn't
the answer.
Your answer.
Hang on, are you at school? Do you not think some of the people at your school, are there some pretty bad ones?
I suppose so,
yeah. There's a couple you can think of on your mind. Would a bit of a good hiding not be good for them? No?
Like my head teacher just said, it would be a badge of honour to come back and I've been caned. And you know, it is. And it seems absolutely...
Detention's a badge of honour, though. Exclusion is a badge of honour as well.
Not particularly inclusion, which is sort of the new form of punishment in schools.
Inclusion?
It's called inclusion, and it's rather than sort of being taken out of schools.
I know David Davis dying to come in, but first of all, a few views from our audience. Yes, what would you like to say first of all?
Strongly against corporal punishment. It's violent, and it's against human acts of children against a minor. There's more positive acts of punishment, and it just is not the way to go to achieve a moral society.
And Blue Shirt, what would you like to say?
I couldn't disagree more with that. In the last 20 years, we've seen a massive disintegration of our education system in one way and another. And it's fine for people to come on here and say, well, it's not the way to go forward. Well, clearly it worked in the past because the education system we had then was better than it is now. We have bouncers. My mother's been in teaching. We have bouncers wandering corridors. We have teachers fearful of children for their own safety. This is not what a state education system should be about.
The cane is not
the answer. No. Exactly.
But has the lack of the cane caused the problem?
I think there's no connection between the two. If I can just say things, the world is completely different to the world as it was 20, 30 years ago. I did some research on the Times archive this morning, and they're having the same arguments in 1937, 1952, 1975. There has never been a golden age of pupil behaviour, ever.
No. As a head teacher stabbed to death only a few hundred yards from my house, let's be clear, we're talking about a very serious breakdown of order in many schools in Ealing, in West London.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's be clear, this is not a game we're talking about. And let's also be clear that teachers are saying that up to a third of their lives is now spent, sometimes 80% of their lives are spent keeping order in the class. This is what it's about. This is why we're having the calls for caning. Now, personally, I don't think the caning is the answer, but let's be sure about this. We have to move away from a no-touch culture. What we've got at the moment is a situation where a head teacher may be suspended and have a career permanently rep for just slapping a teacher, or even holding her aggressively in the middle of a fight with another pupil.
Because some of these kids, they know their rights, don't they?
Listen, you touch me, my father will be down here and he'll take you to court. We have to change this suicidal embracement of pacifism in schools.
David, okay. Let's see what David Davis and Sir Stephen Wall think about this. I know you were both caned when you were at school, didn't you? I don't know if you've been caned recently at all, but
only by the press.
Only by. Is it time to rethink this? It's a notional debate.
A couple of things. I mean, firstly, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it, a moral problem with it. Sadly, I don't have to do the research. I can remember the time talking about not 1937, but certainly the 1950s, and I was caned several times. I can't remember all of them now. It didn't have the effect. I mean, of course, young kids with braggadocio would say, "Well, of course, you know, I'm big because I've been caned." Actually, it didn't mean they didn't fear it. But it won't come back because it isn't actually Parliament makes a decision. This is a European Convention decision at the end of the day, which doesn't allow us to bring back caning. But there is a real problem here. The gentleman here actually picked on it. There has been a massive change in the balance of power in the class.
Is that because of the lack of the cane, though? Has that been one of the factors that has caused that?
I think it's part of the same social trend. It's the same the change in social mores. I mean, when I was at school, if they said, "I want to see your parents tomorrow," I would be terrified. Today, it's the kid who says, "I'm going to bring my dad in to see you." Now, that change is dreadful, and there are two teachers in my constituency, I can't name them, but who have lost their jobs because of false allegations made against them by pupils. And this is now where we've got to. As you say, you can't touch a pupil, you can't separate a fight, and you have all sorts of, because of the concerns about paedophilia, now children's departments in local authorities will instantly suspend any teacher who has an accusation.
So how do we rebalance?
So you've got this massive change of balance of power.
Well, the problem is that successive governments have not been able to tackle the root causes of the problems that we're now seeing in schools.
Which are?
Inequality in society. You know, we are living, our society, yes, so it means that the children, we're living in a kind of a system of educational apartheid almost in this country.
So poor people are badly behaved?
No, but...
Well, that seems to be what you're saying.
No, what you're saying is you've still got a system here in this country of privilege. And so that the people who have no access to that, obviously there is frustration, No.
Yes. No, I was a working class kid, single mum, and so on. I didn't misbehave because I felt annoyed about that. I misbehaved because I enjoyed misbehaving. That's what young kids do.
Yeah, there's a vast group of people.
But it's hugely insulting to those who are suffering from inequality to say that they're more likely to misbehave, isn't it?
No, I'm just saying that the pressures on these people in society are such that, and the fact that they're not recognised and privilege is so entrenched.
It's got nothing to do with class or prosperity or that sort of thing.